to get going. I really have every intention of keeping this pretty short. I've got some information to share with you,
You want me to read anything?
a couple of examples, and then I'll leave it open for questions at the end. So if you would kind of make a note and write it there. The PowerPoint that I'm using will be available, so you really don't need to take a lot of notes. I've got things written down here. I hear a little bit of chatter, so if those of you who are not muted could do that for me now, that'll help with the quality of this for the recording. Love hearing the chiming clocks and the puppies barking, but it is a little bit affects the quality, so that would be perfect. Okay, let's settle in here. Again, I think the major question looming here is, why are we doing this? It seems like we have a lot of trainings, particularly around the subject of district grants. So a little bit of background, I think, is important. The Rotary Foundation charges districts with qualifying clubs to receive grant funds. And the district itself is qualified by the Rotary Foundation. Interestingly enough, it's the district, somebody's still live here. The district is responsible, legally, financially, the stewardship part of it for the management of those funds. But of course, the district gives the district grant funds to each of the clubs to manage and spend on their selected projects. So it's really this three-legged stool that we're managing, and that's why you as treasurers are really important to this process. I anticipate we also have some incoming presidents-elect who were not able to make the CLA training in April. Maybe you even sent a delegate, but for this specific district grant requirement, they do need to view or attend this session. So welcome to all of you as well. I will mention a few things about that, but primarily this session is for the club treasurers. And again, there is why this is so important in the stewardship part of it is that the district being responsible, if we at the district level have not paid attention, there is some punitive damage that can happen. So it's worth all of our efforts that we stay within the lines and we pay good attention to this. And I want to remind all of us, this is the money that you're spending at the club level is your money that you donated to the Rotary Annual Fund share, and it's come back to the district for these projects. So it's we're all invested in this at multiple levels for sure. So I am going to share my, while I'm sharing my screen, you all are going to check one more time to make sure your mics are muted.
You want me to go check in?
I can't hear you and them. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm just telling you that it's going to listen to you, so don't talk.
Yeah, okay, who's ever talking, would you turn your mic off, please? I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, let's get into this. When it comes to district grant stewardship, there are really three key people within each of your clubs that are involved in this. That's the president, you, the treasurer, and the grant writer. The grant writer has had their own training session. We did that already. The president has or is attending this session to get a little bit of background there. So really quickly, this is kind of a summary page for the individual responsibilities. And I will tell you they're not in any order because we're going to dig into that. But the president-elect, the president who will be in that position during the project year, so starting July 1, had to sign your district grant application and submit it to the district. That was a June 1st event, so that's already happened. I think for those of you who are incoming club presidents that are on this call today, not 100%, but we certainly see, at least one member who's really the driving force in a club be taking care of district grants. I would just personally encourage you to expand on that and just make sure that it's really a club project, not an individual member project. And you do have at least one key person who's really monitoring that grant and then reporting back to the club frequently. As part of the club leadership, addressing again the presidents, it's important that your club policies align with the grant policies, particularly when it comes to the stewardship piece. And you will find all of those in that club MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, that you have already signed. So you'll hear me refer again to go back and look at the individual requirements on there and make sure your club is in compliance and has methodologies in place. There is a 7-year record retention when it comes to district grants. So again, the president, as part of the club leadership, is responsible for making sure that of the oversight of that, and it does happen. And then obviously it's a requirement of district grants that Rotarians be involved. So certainly that's part of the responsibility of the president, along with your board, to make sure that happens. And that's where the enrichment comes anyway. So that's pretty obvious. On the right-hand side, you see the grant writer. It's really primarily their job to develop the project application, submit the required documentation, particularly if there's multiple clubs involved on a single grant project, which is policy in our district. They would coordinate with those clubs along with the president to make sure that everything moves forward. They had a training to attend, as I already mentioned, and they're primarily the one who's uploading files and receipts as part of the grant documentation. The treasurer position is equally important in managing the district grant funds. Again, this is a summary list. I'm going to dive into this in more detail in the next slides. As a requirement of terms and conditions of the Rotary Foundation, when you receive grant funds, you need to put those into a dedicated district grant account so they're not mingled with other funds. You'll probably be the one receiving the invoices or receipts that will be required for reporting, because you're going to be the one paying the bills. We're going to talk more about the use of a debit card and how that makes your job easier and also helps you stay in compliance. You've already been asked, or if not, can prepare yourself for that your grant writer is going to be asking you for an opening statement, maybe your May statement on your district grant. We can see that there's a small balance in there before we fund your next project. You will then use that district grant account to transfer your club's contributions, your matching contributions, into that account. And you're probably already aware that you did read and initial the club Memorandum of Understanding, because that's a document that's required for qualifications. And this last one, upload receipts and files, that's kind of at the club level thing. Do you give all of that to the grant writer, or you as treasurer and you support that process and upload what they need? That will just sort of leave to you, but you're certainly going to be asked for those at the appropriate time. I shared this with the grant writers. There are really 5 steps to the district grant process from beginning until end. You see those on the screen: qualifying the club. At the club level, discussion is going on about which projects you'd like to submit for district grant funds. Completing and submitting the application is step 3, and then the implementation and management of that project to completion, and then the final report that's submitted to the district to close that out. The little red stars you see there, those are the 3 out of the 5 that, as club treasurer, you are intimately involved with. So we're going to dive a little deeper into those. Step 1, as I mentioned at the onset briefly, at the district level and at the club level, each year we need to be qualified to receive grant funds. When that comes to your role in that, you will be asked to read and sign the club Memorandum of Understanding. There's a special section on there for you to initial. Sometimes that little box gets missed. If you didn't read it for comprehension when you first were asked to sign that, I encourage you to go back and look at that. It talks about the specific requirements of your grant account, of records retention, of 2 signatures, for moving money, working with club leadership on that retention, that 7-year retention there. And then again, I mentioned over and over again, the dedicated grant account that would be managed by you. So using an example on that last one, on occasion, we will see that clubs use their foundation account, so it's not commingled with club operation money. Technically, your club foundation is a separate entity. It has its own EIN number, separate from your club, and only a club can receive grant accounts. So that foundation account, if that's what you've been using, does not qualify for a dedicated grant account. So I would encourage you to take a look at that, and if needed, open up another sub account or something, but it has to be on the club side. So particularly if you're a new treasurer and you're not sure how that was originally set up many years ago, quite possibly, you might take a look at that and make sure that you are in compliance. Now I'm going to jump down to step 4, where you really get busy, and that's the management and implementation of a project. And I really start the clock here when you get the check from the district grant treasurer, who this coming year will be immediate past district governor Jim Polk, who I think is on the call this morning. And he will be sending you the money once the reviewer has said that the project has been approved and can receive payment. So you'll be depositing those district designated funds, DDF, into your club's dedicated district grant account. I would recommend your cash match be moved into that account close to that same time. So let's say the maximum amount of district funds that you can receive for a grant, as long as it's a single club project, is $2,000. You're then required to put in a club match of $2,000. So now you have $4,000 for your 24-25 district grant. You will then pay all expenditures out of that grant. You know, again, on occasion, we'll see compliance when the grant application is submitted, that you share with us that you've got a dedicated grant account, but then we notice 6 months later when you're paying expenditures against that project, it's coming out of a different account. So just make sure that money in, money out of that district designated, or excuse me, your district grant account.
Leanne, can I ask a question?
Sure.
This is John, because it's pretty important. So for our club, because we're gonna have to open a new account anyways, because we're at People's Bank now for the.
Okay.
But we have we have our regular operating accounts
Mhm.
for the Jacksonville Applegate Rotary,
Right.
and then we also, when we fund projects, whether usually it's all our money, we have what's called the Jacksonville Applegate Charity and Education Trust.
Right. I'm aware of that.
So when we fund everything, we usually do it through the trust. So does it matter? I know that Sherry's already filling out the application. In that respect, if we open a separate account, either way, does it matter if it's under the operating account for our Rotary, or can we have it under our Jacksonville Applegate and Trust, which we prefer to do because that's where we usually fund everything out of.
Understood. But again, that trust is going to have, John, it's a separate nonprofit organization all its own.
Yeah.
Okay, then you cannot receive grant funds.
Okay, so it has to be under the operating account then.
Well, it has to be under the club, yes.
Right.
But it would be a separate account number under your club.
Okay.
People's-
Well, they're both our club. Both of them are our club money. We just kind of we handle.
Oh,
it
I
separate.
understand the money. I'm talking about the entity. So
Okay.
the Rotary Club of Jacksonville Applegate is the entity, and then it
Okay.
would have to be Rotary Club of Jacksonville Applegate district
Okay.
grant account, and it would be a
Okay.
unique account number from the club operation funds.
Okay, great. That answers the question perfectly. So we'll take it.
It is confusing, I know. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you asked for clarity. So I've mentioned receipts a couple of times as you start spending money down as the project moves forward. Those are going to need to be retained by you. You're going to have to get those from your Rotarians if they're the ones who actually are in the field, if you will, spending the money. And those will need to be uploaded to the Documents tab on the grant itself. That's probably going to be done by the grant writer. Doesn't have to be if you want to help with that. For your role in this, those receipts must be dated after the grant was approved. You cannot spend district grant funds before club has received approval for the project from your grant reviewer. So, you know, and example of that would be your club for quite a few years has been doing school supplies for kids in the fall. So we start shopping early to get the best deals, the best bang for our buck, and just building an inventory of school supplies. Then as you get closer to the school year, you buy backpacks and you start putting supplies into those packs. And then one year someone goes, well, why don't we use that as our district grant project this year? Great. But you've kept, building up your inventory. And when you try and submit those receipts, they are dated before the new year's grant has been approved. And those would not be legitimate receipts. You cannot spend grant money before it's been approved. So again, that's where you can help your club leadership, and you can help your grant writer, manage that and make sure that you don't stub your toe on that. I want to talk a little bit more about debit cards. The grant team has been encouraging this more the last couple of years. And again, if I have presidents-elect on the call, I'm really speaking to you and your incoming boards on this as well. It's much easier. We cannot use gift cards. That is completely against policy, and everybody's in compliance now with that. But what we do see, practically speaking, is that if you're buying food for food boxes for Christmas, for example, you'll have 5 or 6 Rotarians go out with their food list and they buy that. They charge it on their own cards, or they however they spend it, it's their personal that they're spending. Then they come back to the club and they ask for reimbursement. 2 things happen there is sometimes they're reimbursed out of the wrong account. And that's against reimbursing Rotarians individually like that is not following policy. So how do we get around that? And that's where I encourage you to get a debit card, a couple of them, against your district grant account. It works wonderfully. And it makes your job as treasurer a lot easier because all of that just shows up on the bank statement. So you have one nice little tight place with everything being accounted for.
Leanne, this
Yes.
is Carol Rogeri.
Hey, Carol.
Just one caution as a former banker, do not get 6 or 8 or 10 debit cards. 1 or 2 is fine, but you're going to lose control if you get too many debit cards in circulation. I mean, like I said, 1 or 2 is fine. Any more than that, and you're just inviting trouble.
Yep, you kind of took the words right out of my mouth because
okay.
Reminding myself of the different points I wanted to talk about. That was pretty much what I was going to say next is, part of this is 4-way test. I mean, it's 4-way test guiding us from, the district level and working with our clubs. And I also think at the club level, working with our energized and service-oriented Rotarians. I would totally agree with Carol that 1 to 2 cards, you can check them out, like a library book, like we used to do in the old days. So you know who has the cards and you can get them back and be a very specific process. But it's going to make the treasurer's jobs much easier. It's going to make your reporting on your grants much easier. I do think it can be managed successfully. So I strongly encourage, clubs to do that. We can talk separately offline with your grant reviewer if you have more questions about that. I encourage that. Go ahead.
Can I ask one more question, Leanne? So you're talking about, don't spend the grant funds until you actually have them in the account.
Mm-hmm.
What if we we have 5,000 of our money in that account and we need to spend some of that, like $1,000? Can we do that? Or do you have to wait till the grant money comes in?
You have to wait until your grant's approved, John.
Okay.
Yeah. And those are almost simultaneous. So I would, just for, total transparency and clarity and kind of containing miscommunication with Rotarian responses, I would just prefer we sort of wait. Again, you can talk with your reviewer about that on an individual project basis if you really need to act on something. And your reviewer can guide you through that.
Leanne, can I piggyback on something John just said? So
Yes.
It sounds also like you wouldn't recommend even moving funds into any account until it is approved, just for reporting and clarity and down the future, down the road. I mean, maybe it doesn't matter, but
Yeah, that doesn't, Dave, matter so much. Again, that's kind of an internal thing with the club. And I'm going to cover this at the end, but we all know that it's a good thing to repeat things more than once. Our timeline that's going on here, I mentioned one already. June 1 is when the applications needed to be submitted. We have all of that. The clubs that have already, we as a team have acknowledged back to the clubs that they will be participating in the grant program this year. Some of the clubs that submitted second projects have been notified whether those second grant applications did make the cut or did not make the cut. So that part has, clubs have been notified. So your president, incoming president, your contacts on your grant, the grant writer know that, okay, I've made the first step and those applications are now in the review process for completeness with each of the reviewers. At the same time, our Rotary District Foundation Chair, Cindy O'Neill, she is building what's called a block grant. She's taken all of the individual projects and she's putting them into one block grant with the Rotary Foundation. Once that's done, wherever we show up in the queue with the Rotary Foundation staffer, they will review that and approve or ask more questions or delete. Never doesn't really happen. And then it'll come back and once all of the club qualification steps are completed, you will be notified that your grant has been approved and will be funded as soon as Jim gets the check out and it gets to you in the mail. I'm going to say later July would be the earliest we're going to start that secondary process. It's every year it's a little bit different. So you're probably going to get funding, in that August timeframe. So going back to the questions is when that final level of approval is really what you're waiting for before you get to do anything. And I'm going to show you where you can find that a little bit later in the presentation. Looking at my last bullet point here with Rotarian involvement, that's the big thing in all of this. And you've probably heard it stated in different ways. In using grant funds, it can't just be what we call a pass-through, where you've been supporting another nonprofit agency, whether it's, youth or internationally for years, and you in the form of just sending them money to support scholars or a project specifically there. The terms and conditions of the Rotary Foundation require that Rotarians are really involved in the project, and that can take all kinds of involvement, from the design of the project to helping with the implementation of it, buying stuffing bags, etc. Internationally, it's a bigger challenge, but the Rotarian involvement at some level is extremely important. And again, all the specifics about a specific grant will be supported by your grant reviewer, so we can work through all of that. And they're going to need to be noted on the final report. So again, you keeping some notes as a treasurer, as club president-elect, to help with that final reporting documentation would be a great role for you to take. Okay, I told you could figure out at what point your grant is approved, and this you can do without even asking your grant or any of your grant contacts. If you go into DACDB, the district and club database, that's what that stands for, log in, and then go to the district tab at the top of the page, and then click on district grant, the icon there. On the left-hand column, you will see what I've circled as club grants view. And it knows who you are, it knows what club you're in, and it'll open up and you will see approved. So you will see all of your club's district grants for that year that have been approved. So you'll know when it reaches that status here and money is on the way. And I'm overly emphasizing this because we have had some unfortunate miscommunications in the past where, the key person involved in a grant has been told by, let's say, a club officer that, oh, we have approved your district grant. That was at the club level, but that person might receive that it's been approved in a completely different way. And obviously that could lead to actions that would not be productive because there was a lot more that needed to be done before the grant was approved by the district and was going to be funded by the district. So the more people that know where to look, the more people involved and informed on this are really, really what we're after here. So that's why I point this out to you. Continuing with the implementation and monitoring process, I've mentioned the term uploads a lot. Most likely what we see happen is that the grant writer, the key point person on your district grant, is going to come to you as treasurer and say, I need copies of the receipts that we've spent, totaling up to $4,000, or I need an opening bank statement, a scanned copy of that. Please do not take a picture of that, particularly with the little receipts. If you go to Safeway or something, it's nice to put them on the counter, take a little picture of them. We can't read them. They come out about postage stamp size. And so then that generates an email back to your grant writer, who then turns around to you and says, we need to do that again. What I encourage you to do is, if you have to take a picture of it, because whatever shape or format it's in really necessitates that, turn that JPEG into a PDF, and then check it yourself to make sure it's big enough and clear enough that your grant reviewer can read it, and then give that format to your grant writer, who will then upload it onto the grant. But they need to be something, because we actually do look at them and we do a lot of addition and make sure everything adds up. So that's an important piece as the treasurer, and the handling and kind of archiving those receipts on your expenditures are really going to be a help when it comes to that final reporting. So I've talked really fast, which I'm good at doing. So here's kind of the summary in your role, going back to that first slide where there was 3 little figures on there. You have, in order to complete the full club qualification process, you will need to pay your club's dues to the district. And actually, Kim Myers, treasurer of her club, and she's on this call as well. And it's my understanding that those due statements have gone out. The Rotary International will also be sending you in July a statement. You can find it online, and they will send you, as long as you're recorded as your club's treasurer with Rotary International, you will get an email as well that says your due statement is posted. You will pay that. And then Hal Kibbe, who's on our call, is our stewardship chair, and he will notice of that from the appropriate people. Then he will make a record of that you've completed that part of the qualification. I've mentioned a couple of times line 2 here. You'll provide that opening bank statement on your grant account with the application. That is a required upload for the documentation, so you can work with your grant writer on that. I think this is probably the 3rd time now I've mentioned initialing and conforming to the requirements on that club memorandum of understanding. These do change, sometimes subtly, sometimes not. So be sure you take a look at that and read those requirements. That one of the bigger changes this year was the record retention moved from 5 years to 7 years. The easiest thing to do for that, in my mind, is you upload all those records to that and attach it to the specific grant under the documents tab, and then that continues to be retained. You don't need to do anything separate. It's all in one package on the application itself. Again, money in, money out of that dedicated grant account under your management. And again, if you're not, I would encourage you to develop a club policy using debit cards if there's something that's important to your grant account. One of the things I didn't mention, but has been successful, larger construction projects, you might go to Jerry's, or you might go to one of the other big box stores and set up an account And they can either bill you, one bill, one invoice at the end, and you pay a $4,000 bill, or you might have money on credit there and spend that down. But again, that's a really good, simple way for your documentation, make it easy on your Rotarians to spend those grant funds. All invoices dated after that grant approval, so you can see that, as I showed you on the district DAC-DB page, and then keeping those documents. I think I've mentioned that a couple of times now. So those are the bullet.
Red Bull over there, but you'll copy. I was like, well, that's crazy.
When we do all of this, now
Can
we
get a
get to
bottle
the
of water
final
for me?
report. Somebody's still live mic.
Yeah.
That's
Get me
Bruce,
3 beers,
Reese.
I think it's
Bruce
Bruce.
Coors Light.
Okay, Bruce is ordering Coors Light for all of us. Bruce, your mic's hot, buddy.
Bruce Reese, there you go.
I'm picking on you. Okay, so quickly review here. Looking at my half-hour time frame, and I'm a little over, so I want to wrap this up. We've been through the steps, the qualification, your role in that, the submission of the grant to the district, which is the stage we're at now, the implementation and monitoring of the project and completing that. These are meant to be year projects. So in about a year, the appropriate parties will be gathering all the information to submit the final report. That in your role includes all those receipts that you've been writing out of that account. So you can develop your own way of how you're going to monitor and handle those. The final reports for the 23-24 grant year, which is the year we're just finishing, are due December 1st of 2024. Okay, so you have about 14 months to, at the most, to do your project, get all the paperwork done and get it submitted. It's to your club's benefit to do that as long as the project is completed sooner rather than later, and certainly before the December 1st deadline, because until that final report is filed from the previous grant year, you will not receive any funds. So everything may be done, but we're not going to approve, kind of going back to that, some of those earlier discussions we had on this call, it's not going to be approved until your open grant is closed. So that's an important date that does impact the process. Okay, Leanne's going to take a break here, and I'm going to put all of you to work. I need you to put your name, your club position, and your club's name into the chat box. This is part of, as you already know, part of the club qualification process, and we need to document that so that our stewardship chair, Hal Kibbe, has a record and could make sure that it's recorded should we ever be asked. We can demonstrate to Rotary Foundation our qualification process. I asked for the club position because I can't assume you're all treasurers, because we probably have some club presidents and club presidents-elect on this call. So please do that. And for those of you that are listening to the recording of this, obviously you can't put your name into the chat box. So I need you to send an email to Hal Kibbe, just letting him know that you did, review the recording on such and such a date, and he will record that for you. So thank you. Hopefully you're all actively into the chat box now. Grant reviewers, I've mentioned a couple of times. We've got the Mobley team here. Tim and I are grant reviewers, and then Hal Kibbe from Central Oregon and Mike Dillard from Central Oregon are our other grant reviewers. We have broken the alphabet down alphabetically. Between us, Tim has Ashland through Eugene Airport, and then I have Eugene. I pick up at Eugene Delta through Illinois Valley, and then there are two grants from the sister club this year that I will be handling, and then Mike and Hal take the rest of the alphabet, Jacksonville through Wairika. Everyone's already been contacted by the team. They know who the reviewer and most importantly, the support person is. So now I'm looping you into that. If you have questions about, some of the things you've heard today, we've gone through it very quickly. Reach out to your reviewer and get that finalized, because likewise, they were going to be reaching out to your club grant writer if we see some holes in the grant application. Very quickly, a little graphic here of kind of a timeline. Some of these we've already passed. So at the beginning of this year, we started the club qualification process. Obviously, around April is when your incoming presidents-elect received their first opportunity to get some training on district grants. And for the first 4 or 5 months of the year leading up to that June 1 submission, clubs are going through and looking at projects that they want to submit for funding using a district grant. The grant application is developed and it's turned in by June 1. Once the project's been approved, you're going to have the next roughly year to implement and complete the project. And then that final report is due, as I mentioned, no later than December 1st. Now we're talking new grants now, the ones that you just submitted. So those final reports will be due December 1 of no later than 2025, right? And that process just repeats there. Okay, well, I'm going to stop this and open it up for questions. 'Cause I went over a lot of stuff really fast.
Which grant person did the E-Club fall under?
So,
As we're not geographically in any of those areas.
right, it's just alphabetical, Carol. So
Okay.
where does the E-Club, is it E-Club of Jefferson or
No,
Jefferson?
technically it's State of Jefferson Rotary E-Club.
Okay, so that's under Mike and Hal alphabetically.
Okay.
And the best way, and this is just a mechanical question here, the best way you'll know that if you, well, no, I'm going to confuse you with that. Oh, Tim's saying he thinks he has it. He's going to check. Because you're right, some clubs.
It's
Tim
Tim,
has
Leanne,
Yeah.
Jefferson, E-Club is you and Tim.
Okay, Tim does have it then. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
It's listed in DAC as E-Club State of Jefferson.
Yeah, that's why I was asking. Yeah, perfect. Good question.
Leanne, can you, I'm on DACDB, can you walk me through how to find the grants again?
Okay, sure.
I'm on I'm in my club and I'm in the grant tab on the left, I think. It looks like it all says grant. So where would I go from there?
So back up for me a little bit, Dave. So when you went in there, you signed into DACDB, across the top of the page, there's Find Home, My Club, My Data, District, and you click the District tab.
I clicked my club tab. Click the district tab?
Click the District tab.
Okay, and then where do I go from there?
And then that home or that face page that opens up right underneath that district tab looks different because you can customize it on DACDB for yourself. There's going to be a little world globe there that says district grants. It's blue and white, I think. You're going to click on that.
Yep.
And then it's going to open up, and now you're going to see the picture, something similar. On the left-hand side, you're going to see a column that in there, you'll see district grant view, you'll see club grant view. This is the little teachable moment here. This is the district grant landing page. That's what we call this. This is the landing page. And what's significant to all of you when you have a chance to go there, you're going to see significant dates up at the top. You're going to see a ton of links to the club MOU, to the district policy manual, to a recording of this video, to the recording of the video that the grant writer training. All of the resources are listed there. This is the landing page. Okay, Dave, back to you. So now on that left-hand column, you're going to click on Club View.
Club grants view, okay.
And it's going to populate and it'll show your view up there. And then up in that corner, it'll say submitted to district for approval or review, something like that.
One thing I figured out is nothing was showing up, and it was because it was dating back to 2021, 2022. So I
You
changed
have
the
to
year.
change. Yeah. Hal's got his hand up and I'm assuming that's what he was going to say. Go
Yes,
Hal.
that's
Yeah.
right. You make sure you're in the right org here.
Yep.
Yep.
And again, this is important because I'll have people, I'm working with and like, I can't find it, or it's not there. Somebody made my grant go away. And it's like, what org year are you in? Because I'm working so heavily now in the coming Rotary year, 24, 25, when I go to change the org year, I now make it my default. There's a little box there you can check. So it always takes me to the new current Rotary year. And then I have to force myself to go back to 23, 24 if I have to do something there. That way
Yeah.
it can avoid a little confusion.
That,
Great
that,
questions.
that helped. The year thing helped a lot.
The year thing will
Okay.
help.
Yep, okay.
Okay, other questions? I hear talking, but I don't know if that was a question. It was too
Leanne,
light.
can you hear me?
I can now.
Yeah, this is John. So on the slides you presented, are you going to email them to us or can we just go back in somehow and open them up?
What I'm going to do, John, is I'm going to, this is being recorded. So two things are going to happen. I'm going to send that recording to Hal to post on that landing page that we just talked about at those bottom where the resources are. And I will also send him a copy of the PowerPoint slides. So that's where they're going to be housed for you. But it will be under the 24-25 year. Because if you go back, you're looking at the old ones.
All right.
Great question. Anybody else?
Hi, this is Matt Hurley. I had more of a specific grant question. Is there a set dollar amount, a maximum that you can apply for? I noticed on that slide that you had one project that was like 17,000. And I didn't know if there was a max and so much you could get in a grant year.
Yes, Matt, there is. So that amount has been determined already per policy. In the spring of each year, the executive committee of our district level foundation committee meet and determine the match for the district grants. That happened in April, I think it was, and it was determined for the coming Rotary year, the 24-25 Rotary year for district grants, that the maximum would be $2,000 of DDF, district designated funds, that a club could apply for with a $2,000, a one-to-one match for their district grant project this year. When the numbers get bigger is we have an unlimited number of clubs that can apply for a multi-club grant. My club, along with 4 other clubs in the Rogue Valley, over multiple years, took advantage of that policy, and we did a $20,000 worth of district grants because every club has $4,000. There's 5 clubs. You've got $20,000 to work with there, or up to that because of the cap. So again, if you've got, I see this same thing with Dolly Parton Imagination Library. Clubs come together in their county, in their area, and they pool those district grant funds and their club funds, and they do larger, more impactful projects. Little asterisk next to that for all of you. For obviously we're talking next year because this year is set, no changes at this point. It always must be the highest priority grant for all the club partners. Okay, great question, Matt. Okay, we're going to wrap this up. Anybody else have any other questions? So you know where you got the recording. If you need to listen to it again, it'll be coming in a couple of days. You'll have the slides. If you have some team members you want to share it with, or if you're, the incoming treasurer, but now you have, much more pointed questions for the treasurer that you're taking over for, that maybe you sit down together and go through this and see how they handled some of this. It's all a tool there for you to use. And then please, as a really important member of the team helping steward these grants, funds, as well as the project into this new year, is reach out to your reviewer if you have any questions, because that's what we're here for. And that feels good when we ask the questions early instead of getting clear down the road and then trying to back up and fix something. Nelson, do you have your hand up, sir?
I do. Thank you very much. hey, you know, within the district and within our own Rotary clubs, we continue to evolve to become better and stronger and more efficient and effective. And today's presentation by Leanne and Hal and the team is just yet another example of how we can become better and more efficient. And something else that you probably heard is that for this round of district grants, we were oversubscribed, which means that we had more clubs asking for district DDF funds than we actually had money for. And for me and for the leadership team, we are ecstatic about that. That's great. Everybody understands the power of the leveraging that we get from utilizing this process and being able to provide that many more projects to our communities. Unfortunately, of course, we didn't have enough funds for everybody's project, or at least for everyone's second project. We funded everyone's priority projects, but we couldn't fund everyone's secondary project. And so what that tells us is that we need to do a little bit better job at making sure that we encourage people to understand the benefit of their donations to the annual fund share, because it's those dollars that come back to us, or half of those dollars that come back to us in 3 years, that we then use to help fund these district grants. So yet another message to take back to your clubs. We're doing a lot of great work, and this is a wonderful process that we can utilize to help fund the great work that we do in our community. So Leanne and Hal and the rest of the team and everyone here on this call, thank you so much for everything that you do.
Thank you, Nelson. And we're looking forward to July 1 under your leadership, soon to be district governor. Thank you. Whoop, whoop, you bet. Sharon, you had a question. You have your hand up.
Yeah, one question. I'm not sure on banking and all that sort of stuff, but if we put in so much money for the grant, and you put in so much money for the grant, and then we use it all, which is what we're supposed to do, right? If you finish
You
it.
have to use it all, or you have to send half of it back. Yeah.
Perfect. No, that's fine. So use it all. What can you keep a bank account with zero in it for next year, or do you have to reopen it each year?
Well, probably not. And I have experienced the dramatic downside of that when I actually zeroed it out and the bank automatically made it go away.
Yes.
So I would really encourage you, do not follow in my footsteps. I would fully understand your bank's policies, and you may have to keep, you know, whatever their minimum amount in there is, $100, $10, you know, $500, but you do what you need to do, because you just keep that. I would say keep it open, but I would really work with your bank. And to my knowledge, not probably to every single bank, but they've been very understanding with it, ready to work with a nonprofit, and make sure that you're not getting, you know, charges and things like that. So I would just work with them on that. But I would just keep the same open, so you're not repeating the process year after year.
So if we kept $100 or $200 in there, it wouldn't be a problem for you.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No, what will draw my attention, Sharon, is if you send me that opening bank statement and I look at it and there's $15,000 in there.
Okay.
You know,
Cool.
yeah, because
That
then we'll
works.
have a conversation about why. Yeah.
I just want to make sure on that. And the other question is on Rotary involvement. I'm just doing a RILA this year. How much involved do I have to be in sending children to RILA?
Okay, well, let's talk about that and kind of break down our definition of active Rotarian involvement. So it really starts with at the club level, when your club members and your leadership are having whatever process they go through, you go through together to figure out, you know, what are the different projects, community programs that you might want to be working with. There's involvement. Then someone is now charged with being the liaison between, you know, the entity that you're going to be doing the project for. That's club involvement. What's involvement is not fundraising. So we don't even need to mention that. But if it's an international project, you're doing communication with your partner overseas, that is active involvement. So you can see just by those few examples that I gave that we really have hands-on throughout the project. RILA, I'll take that very specifically. You needed to get applications to your schools, so you're working with the schools. You needed to screen those applications, do some interviewing, quite possibly with the students, select your students. That is all active Rotarian involvement.
Okay, just checking. Thank you very much.
And you can make that when you're doing those final reports, you can help your grant writer just put those bullets in. It doesn't need to be a 300-word narrative. It can just be bullets of what Rotarians did, just like the list that I just gave you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay,
Leanne, can I ask one question?
absolutely. Good
Terry,
morning.
good morning. So are you recommending that in that separate grant bank account, we don't put in our club's share of the money until we get the grant approved? Is that what you're saying? Because we were going to
Yeah.
just put our club's money in there, the
Yeah.
$2,000 for the.
There's no, Terry, there's no downside to that because you
Okay.
know you've done that. I don't think there's nothing
Okay.
saying you couldn't do that. Yeah.
Okay.
No policy there.
But we just can't spend it on the project until we get the grant approved.
It's the spending part, yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Don't want
thanks.
to be too eager there. You are right. And again, it's so hard to, put together guidelines that fit every situation. So that's when you go, I'm not sure about this. Call your grant reviewer ahead of time and they will help you figure that out. Okay, Sharon, is your hand still up or did you have another question? Okay, well, I'm going to do last call and then I'm going to let you guys really get into your Saturday here. Thank you so much for joining me. Great questions. And again, all the resource material will be up in a couple of days on that landing page that we discussed earlier. So you can go in there and review some of the things that we covered today. Please make sure that your name, your position, and your club appears in the chat box before I turn this off, because I'm going to save that list, and that's how you will be notifying the grant team that you have completed yet another step in your club qualification process. Thank you.